Welcome, everyone, to the Epic Again podcast. This is episode number 1. I'm your host, Gary Cook, and I'm excited to kick this one off and get this show up and running. It's been a long time coming. I mean, we were supposed to come back in May, then June, now it's July. A lot's kind of delayed that. We moved houses, me and the wife. We have tried to build me a full-on office/studio, but the price of lumber went through the roof, and that made that a no-go. So we've gotten another room set up as the office. Those watching on YouTube can see it's a bit of a mess in here right now, but we are going to be up and good to go in no time. But we got the mic set up. I got some monitors set up. So it was, let's dive on in and see what we can make happen, because I'm ready to get back to content creation. So with that in mind, as I was thinking about this first episode, it's like, what do I want to talk about? What do I want to share with you all? So I've kind of broken it down into 3 sections. The first one is we're going to talk about what is Epic Again? What do I hope for it to achieve? What's the goal of this whole podcast? The website? What do I want this community to be based around? And then we're going to hop on into what kind of content am I going to be creating for it, and what can you guys look forward to, and how can you interact with that content? And then lastly, I was faced with the dilemma of, what do I want to play? What game do I want to bring to the live streams? What do I want to kind of become the cornerstone of my video game content? And how is that going to impact you guys? And I initially was thinking about getting back into Warcraft. It's been about a year, probably less than a year, probably about 4 or 5 months since I last played. It's kind of been my home for the past 15 years. 14 years, something like that. Whenever Burning Crusade originally dropped, I started just before then with the end of vanilla. So I was like, that's home. That's a community I've always been a part of in the past, but once I dove in, I couldn't do it. And after looking around and weighing some options, I ended up thinking that, hey, Final Fantasy XIV looks pretty good. Hearing a lot of good things about it. Maybe I need to make the switch. So we're going to jump in and just kind of look at what has drawn me to Final Fantasy XIV and what's pushed me away from WoW. And it might be the same for some of you, or maybe I'm completely crazy. I'd love to hear your guys' feedback on it either way. So with all that said, let's jump on in, slay some dragons, and grab some epic loot. It's time for the Epic Again podcast. Welcome back, everybody, from that break, or that intro, I guess, technically. Not really a break yet, but let's talk about Epic Again. Where'd the name come from? Well, that's simple. The goal of every video game is to get the epic level gear. And love for fandoms tends to be pretty epic amongst people like us. And I wanted to make that epic again. I've gotten so tired of just toxicity. Toxicity in Warcraft, toxicity in Star Wars, toxicity in Firefly, toxicity in Star Trek. Just every fandom just seems to have so much toxicity lately that I've been engaged with that I'm tired of it. I want a place where people can hang out, who love fantasy, who love sci-fi, who love steampunk, and just get together, build a community, and just enjoy it again. And I'm not saying that there won't be things we don't like, and there won't be criticisms of things that we feel are being done wrong. But there's a way to do that and just not be a douche nozzle. And I feel like so many people right now they go for the low road. They're just so burnt out that they just end up becoming toxic, whether they mean to or not. And I want to try to build a community around the idea that you don't have to be toxic. Win or wipe, toxicity doesn't have to be a part of it. And we all love these fandoms. We all get excited by them, and we're all passionate about them. But we also need to be able to respect each other's opinions about them, that some people are going to love one thing and some people are absolutely going to hate that. And I don't want a community that feeds into the divisive nature that so many platforms are currently feeding into. So I want to be positive, and I want to surround myself with positive people. I also want to give you guys some insight into some of the stuff I do. I am a game designer. I have worked with some independent games before, and I'm currently building my own tabletop RPG. So I kind of want to talk about that stuff and give you guys a look at what goes into that. Let you guys be a part of the world building, the lore creation, show you the game systems, maybe even let you guys test those game systems as we work on them. And kind of just be an open, transparent forum for building that. Because I feel like when a developer or a designer has a passion for a product and they share that with people, and you find people that have that same passion and want to give back, you end up with a really good community. And you get a really great game out of that. That's how Blizzard started. That's how the Elder Scrolls series started, was people connected with it, and there was just a bond between those developers and those communities. And I would love that for this game as we're working on building that out to make it something that I think will be pretty exciting. It's going to be a high fantasy steampunk game that's a tabletop and might have some digital tie-ins as we look to see where we can go with it. And the last thing that I want from this Epic Again brand and community is to have fun with other players. Have fun with other content creators and people in the industry, and just talk about and enjoy and share the love and passion that we all have for the same things as we are growing and building and working towards this awesome community built around a toxic-free environment and the fandoms we love. I want to have fun, and I want to see where we can take it. And so that brings us to kind of how are we going to get that out to you guys? What are you guys going to have to interact with? Well, we're going to have blog posts. Pretty obvious since you're on a blog. That looks at fantasy, sci-fi, steampunk, anything to do with those genres, whether it's books, movies, TV shows, video games, comic books, everything that just runs the gamut, and just talk about what we love, what we don't like, what we're hoping to see happen, what theories we want to dive deep into and pick apart and see where they take us. We're also going to do some game trailer reactions, looking at what's coming out, what we're moving into, and kind of our first thoughts and feelings about what we're seeing. And then as things are opening back up, we're going to go to conventions, and we're going to do our best to live stream and do podcasts and videos from them. I know we have some here in the South that are going full swing this summer and fall. So we're going to work on getting out to those and just share what we can from there, and hopefully pick up some pretty cool swag to show off, which will lead to some unboxing videos and unboxing live streams looking at some loot crates and stuff that we pick up along the way, and letting you guys experience the excitement of opening them up right alongside us as we dig in and see what we got. And then, of course, the last bit, like we talked about before, is we're going to put out resources and guides and walkthroughs and playthroughs for testing of the steampunk tabletop game I'm working on, and get your guys' feedback firsthand on what you like and what you don't like about it. So we have a lot of things that we want to do, a lot of avenues that we want to do. And on top of all of that, of course, will be the live streams and playing through Final Fantasy and looking at that as a total new player to it, and what my thoughts are and what I like and what I don't like. So we have a lot of exciting content that we're planning to do, and a lot of great community building we want to do with you. So hopefully you'll come along for the ride, and in the comment sections for this podcast or this video, feel free to leave what you want to see, things that you'd love to hear about and learn more about as we dive into these things. So if you're on the audio version of this podcast, we're going to take a quick break here for our sponsor message. But if you're on the YouTube video, you'll just get a quick whoosh, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back from that quick break. And now I kind of want to dive into what the meat and potatoes, if you will, of this episode is about. Looking at Warcraft and looking at Final Fantasy XIV a bit and where my content's going to go kind of based on my reactions to that. So some of you probably have gathered, I love MMORPGs. I love RPGs in general. Some of my best friends throughout life and different phases of my life have come from playing MMOs. I started in EverQuest and then that snowballed into Warcraft. And I love those communities, and I love the camaraderie and the team-based feeling to do it all. I found my niche among my friends as a healer. And we'd go out and we'd push battlegrounds and arenas and dungeons. We'd go on epic adventures. We'd fuel ourselves with energy drinks and just level up when a new expansion dropped. And then we'd spend the next months, years hanging out in TeamSpeak, talking about the different things we found, what we're working on, different strategies, loving every moment of it. We would raid towns, we'd square up against the Alliance, we'd defend our home turf in World PvP. It was all really epic. It was exciting. There was a reason to log in every day, and there were people just as excited as I was to log in and play every day. And it felt like everything we did, it had meaning. It was something to set us apart from other people's groups of friends. And we had our own little corner of Azeroth that we could call our own. And there was some ownership there. But I feel like modern gaming, or the modern approach to gaming, it makes it really hard to love MMOs, especially in Warcraft. Cataclysm was a bit of a down spot for me. It started the trend of betrayal from Blizzard, kind of going down this kind of more casual path. Mists of Pandaria offered a few hopes. I enjoyed it, but not to the same extent of the Burning Crusade or Wrath of the Lich King. But a lot of that was, there was some big open battlegrounds to be had, and a lot of world PvP happening on the server I was on. So we kind of looked past some of the chinks in the armor of Mist. But then we hit Warlords of Draenor. And that was the start of the end. A lot of my friends left. I tried to find a new home guild, but it never felt the same. I was on a server that I'd been on since the day that server launched, but it felt like every guild I went into just disintegrated into another group of toxic bros. And it burnt me out on playing in some ways, but I kept playing just because I loved my memories, and was largely a Blizzard fanboy. So what else was I going to do but hope for better days and try my best to find other people like me and try to move back towards what things were. And that's kind of how it was, is I just kind of went through the motions, and Legion was a good up spike, and then Battle for Azeroth I barely played. Shadowlands I leveled through to 60 and then kind of just stopped. And that was kind of where I was when I came back to this. I was like, what do I want to stream? I miss Warcraft. I miss the community. And but trying to get back into it, I just couldn't do it. Everything about Shadowlands just felt soulless. Nothing had any meaning. Everything was just built for a player who doesn't want to interact with anybody else. And that's not what an MMO is. It was all built around the end game. There was no build up. There was no epic adventures to be had. It was just a sprint to get to the end and then do nothing. Log on, do a couple things, grind out some stuff, but nothing had any meaning anymore. It didn't feel like I was building towards anything. And I don't blame the devs fully for this. I mean, they're definitely partially to blame because they took the game in this direction. But it also comes down to the player base. Is we stuck around and we hoped for better days, and we tried to be optimistic and know that, hey, this used to be great. This used to have meaning to us. This used to be where we spent so much of our life. And so we kept supporting and we kept pouring money into it, but it never went anywhere. it just kept getting worse and kept shifting away from the player base that helped make Warcraft how great it was. And so when I tried to get back into it and tried looking at, is Warcraft where I want to make content? Is that where I want to start doing things again? The answer was no. It wasn't the same. It wasn't something I wanted to do. Logging in felt like a chore, just even to check in and see where things were. And that was sad for me because a lot of my best memories stemmed from the things I did there with other players. It was all about our groups and our group adventures, but the design philosophy of WoW has moved away from that. It's not about the group. It's not about the guild. It's not about having these big moments of experience with people that you've gotten to know over the years and worked hard to get there with. It's about you and a group of random people that run through it in silence, watching a Netflix show, and then you all disband and do it again with another random group of people. I mean, I remember a time where I had a friends list full of random friends that I'd made while I was on dungeon runs because they were a good tank or they were a good DPS, and I enjoyed my run with them. So I wanted to keep in touch to do other stuff. It was with people from other guilds that we did things with and IRL friends, and we kind of all would mix and match and get these big groups together and then hang out on the team speak and get to know each other, and then new friendships would be made because somebody would bring their friend in and then they bring their friend in, and it was a big social event as much as it was a gaming event. But it seems like from kind of Warlords forwards, it was me and my NPCs and whatever that expansion's flavor of Garrison was, doing everything by myself. And I hated it. It wasn't fun. It wasn't an adventure. It was just kind of depressing and lonely. And it got me thinking about, if I'm going to jump back into an MMO and this new game, what do I want? Well, I want community. I want epic battles. I want people around me who just want to have fun, who just want to enjoy the fantasy world we're inside of. And that's largely what I keep hearing about Final Fantasy XIV. And I hadn't fully jumped into it. I've always enjoyed Final Fantasy games when I've played them on my PlayStation and Xboxes and such in the past. Even going back to my Game Boy, I had the original Final Fantasy on Game Boy and things. So I'm well familiar with the franchise, but by the time Final Fantasy XIV came out, there were cat girls, bunny girls, and the weeb vibe that kind of it got handled with inside the Warcraft community and all the jokes and how poorly the initial launch of it went, that it didn't feel like it was going to be worth the time or the investment to dive into, so I never did. But I guess you could say I'm older and wiser now, and coming back is, I don't care about those things. They can keep the jokes, they can keep the weebs. Is if the community is as good as I'm hearing, if the story is as great as I keep hearing, if the developers care as much about the people as everybody's saying they do, then that's where I want to be, because that's kind of the big pillars that align with what I crave in an MMO. I want great stories to experience with a great community and to know that the devs want to keep making that. And from everything that I'm seeing and hearing about Final Fantasy XIV is that's what it is. And I'm excited about that. I can't wait to jump in and actually see if that is what it ends up being. And I mean, I didn't come to the choice easily. I dug in. I mean, I gave Warcraft a chance to win me back, to try to get me to do all right, this one more go. Let's dive in here and hunker down. It's going to get better. But listening to Ian and the devs and the team at Blizzard talk about fun and talk about the game, you really see how little they care about it in the way they talk about it, that all that matters is the bottom line money they're going to make off it. And because, I mean, Ian's talked about in a number of interviews I watched of trying to get myself hyped up to jump back into Shadowlands, that basically he's looking at a spreadsheet and going, hey, people keep coming back to do these things past the initial goal, so they must really enjoy doing these and they must find them super fun. And not realizing, hey, that's the only content you've given anybody to do, so they're going to keep doing it. And that's not how I want to measure my fun, is by how many times do I repeat the same task over and over that has no meaning or outcome for me. I don't want to play in a game where community managers openly on Twitter talk about how much they hate the player fan base and how they'd rather just block a bunch of us and don't want to hear the criticisms. It's not where I want to be. They don't understand why Classic drew so many players back for the spike. It's not because we all miss our four polygon night elves and the weirdly block-shaped humans and the little color blob that was gnomes. It's because we missed the philosophy of the game that was. That game was built around everything you did had meaning. All your interactions with other players had meaning. It gave you something of value. It made you want to invest. And there's nothing left to invest in because it's just a soulless shell going through the same motions on repeat that never gets anywhere. And that's really what this came down to, was where do I want to invest? What do I want to spend my time investing in? And if I have no purpose and no meaning and no desire for the things that are happening in Warcraft, and they have no purpose or desire to improve things moving forward, why would I want to invest in them? And if everything I'm hearing about Final Fantasy XIV is true, then I mean that's where I want to invest, because they're doing the things that I want in a game. So I'm hoping it's true. I'm looking forward to jumping in and finding meaning in the story, finding meaning for my character, and finding a group of people and a guild to play with that makes me want to log in and makes me want to go out and do things and just return to the fun of playing in a fantasy world. So with all that said, I hope you all are going to join me as we dive in, as we explore Final Fantasy XIV, if we see if the hype is real. We're going to talk about it. There's going to be videos coming out as I work my way through it, outlining my experience, what I like, what I don't like, comparing it to what I know about Warcraft and the glory days of Warcraft, if it's rekindling that sense of community and meaning that I miss. So if you're part of the Final Fantasy community, I'm excited to play with you. I'm excited to meet you. And I'm looking forward in the near future to hopefully heal you in a dungeon or a raid there as we're going about the world. And if you're a part of that community, tell me why you think it seems to be the greener pasture for WoW players, why so many people are flocking to it, and why it has all this positive buzz coming out of it at the moment that didn't seem to be there a few years ago. Or I guess if it was there, it was just quieter, and now a lot of the bigger voices in the Warcraft community are starting to echo it out. Or what? I'm curious of your opinions, and if you're excited about this kind of attention on your game from the Warcraft community. And for those of you that still love Warcraft, don't get this wrong. I'm always going to love Warcraft. It's always going to be such a huge part of my gaming story. And I want it to be great. I want to have to wrestle with myself of what game do I want to log in and play today? What game is going to give me what I want to do today? And I want it to be better, because even if I don't come back, I want them to push Final Fantasy, and I want Final Fantasy to be pushing them to be better, so that it makes everybody's gaming experience better. And I think that's what we all need to want at the end of the day, but I feel like there's so many mini kingdoms at this point that a lot of people don't understand that it could be so much better if both games were great. And if there was no one king on the throne monopolizing, everybody keeps having to then create something better. But we'll see. I'm excited for the ride and to see where it goes. That's my thoughts. I'm curious about your guys' thoughts on it. Feel free to leave comments, hit me up on social media, and we can talk through any of it. But that's going to wrap up this first episode. I hope you enjoyed the ride. I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear what you want to see coming from the Epic Again brand. And I want to know what you love about Final Fantasy XIV and WoW. What's your favorite job to play in the game? What gets you excited to log in every day? Feel free to share that, and we'll go from there. With that said, stay epic, and and I'll talk to you again next time.